Critical Pedagogy, an overview by Rebecca Cole, Brian Jenkins, and Jessica Palco. When attempting to answer the question, what is critical pedagogy? It may be best to begin with what it is not. It is not one where the teacher is the all-knowing sage, nor one where students are passive receptacles, or where learning rests squarely upon the shoulders of the students. Neither is it one in which teaching is unidirectional, coming only from the adult. This actually leads to what Freire refers to as the pedagogy of the oppressed. Such a pedagogy is more concerned with changing the consciousness of the oppressed rather than the situation which oppresses them. Professor Julio Camarota of the University of Arizona highlights this theory by purporting such a pedagogy, that of the oppressed, requires an internal decolonization for collective human development. In other words, long after the oppressors have exited, the institution remains internally. We've now circled back to the original question. What then is critical pedagogy? Donaldo Macedo, director of the Applied Linguistics graduate program at the University of Massachusetts, Boston, says rather than a methodology, it is a philosophy in which teachers and students live in the world, view the world, and use that to effect change. The approach then becomes one in which teachers and students are both active in the teaching and learning process. It's a way of learning to liberate oneself from oppression, as Camarota puts it. There are three components to consider when teaching critical pedagogy: giving students the opportunity to express their life experiences, critical reflections, and collective actions, engages students in dialogue, and promotes taking action on social issues. The following are examples of how to bring the worldview into the classroom. Third grade students can be taught the importance of water usage. Pose a question to activate their minds to the possibility of our planet without water. Read a narrative, The Boy Who Harnessed the Wind, and an article that relates to this global issue. Encourage students to ask questions, have discussions, and reflect on water conservation. Lastly, create an action plan to collectively change the way water is used in their school. Students in 8th grade can be empowered to adapt their thinking about topics such as social injustices. Music engages audiences. Allow students to listen to the lyrics of Where is the Love by Black Eyed Peas and reconstruct the lyrics into the artist's political message. Explain to students that they'll be reading The Pearl by John Steinbeck, and they will be participating in Socratic seminars regarding topics of social classes. Their exploration of the different social classes in society will motivate them to take action by donating their time as a class to help those in need through charity work. 11th graders can be exposed to Colorado's policies on immigration by allowing students to view images and headlines from local newspapers regarding Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals, or DACA. This will move students to take a stance on immigration policies, then encourage students to read articles from the New York Times and American Immigration Council. Students reflecting on their reading will produce higher-level questions that they can use to ask their guest speaker, an immigrant lawyer. Ultimately, students can participate in a demonstration to support their cause. There are many benefits to this approach. Camarota explained the approach referring to Freire's book. There are two types of propositions that have to exist in order for this approach to work. Oppression and transformation exist, and we can do something about it. This also aligns with Gorski's 8 strategies that work, specifically number 6, teaching about poverty and class bias. The approach gives students a voice and they become less passive and more active in their learning. The content students are learning is relevant to their own lives. They are not just taught to understand information, but rather to learn how to self-reflect and adjust their thinking in order to make a change. This approach is also a great opportunity to take what might seem like a negative topic and make it a positive one. Students learn that oppression exists, but there is something they can do about it. This approach would be a big shift for many educators. Many teachers are used to depositing information and students regurgitating it. Freire refers to this model as banking education. Schools would have to spend time and money on educating teachers, about this approach, but also time spent on understanding the topic of oppression. If educators don't believe that it exists and it can be changed, then the approach will not work. This also will affect the students. If they are not used to engaging with context in this way, time must be vested with the students to teach them how to execute this type of approach. This could also be an emotional approach and cause conflict or resistance from some students. Teachers would have to ensure that students were engaging with the topics productively. Critical pedagogy provides students with an opportunity to connect learning in the classroom with their own lives. In problem-posing education, people develop their power to perceive critically the way they exist in the world with which and in which they find themselves. They come to see the world not as a static reality, but as a reality in process, in transformation.